Exposed. 4 heartwarming fruits to avoid. Over 64 amazing superfoods for your daily boost. Jamie stood behind the bright counter at Harvest Blend, her quaint smoothie shop filled with the chatter of regulars and the whir of blenders. The scent of ripe bananas and strawberries wafted through the air, a comforting embrace she cherished. But beneath the laughter lay the insubstantial whispers of her neighbors, their eyes darting toward her with judgment masked as concern. Just last week, she had overheard Ms. Phillips murmuring, "Did you hear? Jamie's shop isn't is busy these days." After her bitter divorce, she had poured her heart into this place for her kids, a cornerstone in their suburban life. Yet the shadows of doubt crept in more often now. Life had become a delicate balancing act, and every scoop of fruit felt like yet another weight on her shoulders. One sunny afternoon, as she carefully stacked ripe produce, her heart skipped as she stumbled upon an alarming article titled "The Hidden Dangers of Your Grocery Cart." The contents hit her like a thunderbolt. For favorite fruits, bananas, grapes, avocados, and strawberries held possible health risks for her elder customers. They had been staples at every family gathering, tied to memories that bounced through her home like her children's laughter. Suddenly, those memories morphed into pangs of anxiety. What did this mean for Mr. Thompson, the charming veteran who shared stories of yesteryear while sipping his mango smoothie? Quiet resolve stirred within her, a fire ignited. Fueled by a sense of purpose, Jamie envisioned vibrant blends made from superfoods, kale, chia seeds, blue spirulina, and turmeric, powerful ingredients that would uplift her beloved customers. She could be their champion, a beacon of wellness amidst the gathering storms. Just as her dreams began to crystallize, a familiar shadow darkened the doorway, her estranged son, Kyle. His hair was unkempt, and his clothes fitting but worn spoke of struggles she could only imagine. He had come seeking a loan to fund his ambitions, a bittersweet display of hope entangled in the heaviness of past grievances. Jamie felt her chest tighten, a visceral reaction to the emotional turmoil that threatened to engulf her. Could she trust him with her very last savings? "Mom, please. I just need a little help to get back on my feet," Kyle urged, his voice cracking like a fragile glass. Tears prickled her eyes. That old, familiar hurt bubbled back to the surface, the resentment of years gone by. Would helping him cost her the sanctuary of her life she had built? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the sweet smell of fresh fruit blended with her sobering thoughts, the air felt loaded with tension. The community that had gathered around her was beginning to sense change, a call to arms, perhaps, to rally around Jamie as she stood at the crossroads of her past choices and uncertain future. And just as she was preparing to navigate through this emotional minefield, news hit like a wave. Mr. Thompson had collapsed. Would he recover? Jamie's heart raced as she fought to keep her family, her business, and community intact. Did she have the strength to reach out not just to her son, but to those who had always depended on her? Questions swirled in her mind as she felt the weight of her world pressing heavily down, every murmur of hope wavering uncertainly. Would this be the moment where she could redefine not only her family but the way they all connected together? Jamie felt her heart pound against her ribs as she processed the news about Mr. Thompson. He was more than just a customer. He was a fixture in her life, sharing stories of bravery during lunch and teaching her kids about resilience. The stillness of the shop seemed to amplify her worries. The quiet chatter faded into an echo, as if the universe held its breath right along with her. Her mind raced back to the recent article she had read. What if the fruits she had been serving had unwittingly contributed to the frailness of her customers? She had always believed in the power of wholesome ingredients, that healthy food meant a healthy community, but now that belief felt shattered, threatening to engulf her in guilt. "Jamie?" Kyle's voice broke through her thoughts, layered with a vulnerability she had rarely seen in him. "I know this is a lot to ask, but if you'd just lend me a hand." He looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, She saw the boy she used to know, the one who used to draw pictures in her kitchen, laughing as he smeared paint over the table. But years of disappointment overshadowed those moments. What if this was just another empty promise wrapped in desperation? "I can't, Kyle. You know things are tough for me right now," she whispered, steeling herself against the wave of memories threatening to rush in. But despite the words, her heart ached. She understood what it felt like to stand on shaky ground. "Then, maybe you can at least help me find a way to turn my ideas into something real?" His eyes were pleading, searching for a connection they had lost. A flicker of hope sparked within her, challenging her to meet him halfway. "Your ideas?" she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "What are you working on?" He took a deep breath, his excitement shining through. "I've been thinking about local ingredients, too. Smoothies made with less common stuff, like jackfruit or even sweet potatoes. Healthier options. Just a little variation might attract the crowd back to the shop." Just then, the door swung open with a jingle, letting in a burst of light and a few curious customers. Jamie's pulse quickened, not just from the arrival of patrons, but from the radiant opportunity to blend both their dreams. "Okay, listen," she said, her voice more confident now. "Let us work on something together. We can come up with a new menu, superfood options that are safe, and then maybe even talk about what we're going to do with the shop." Kyle's face lit up. "Really? You mean it?" She nodded, feeling a mix of apprehension and warmth. A step together into unknown territory, but also a chance for healing. Maybe this conversation could be a cornerstone, just like Harvest Blend had always been for her family. But at that very moment, a familiar voice cut through the murmur, heavy with concern. "Jamie, have you heard from Mr. Thompson's family? They need support." Reality crashed down again, leaving little room for celebration. They were not just brainstorming. They were part of a community that depended on care and compassion, especially now when darkness loomed. They needed to act. Kyle glanced at her, sensing the urgency in the air. "Mom, we can do both. Let us bring the community together. Maybe we can create a benefit event at the shop." Ideas raced between them, setting fire to the stagnant air. What if they invited everyone to come together for Mr. Thompson? They could provide smoothie samples made from the superfoods, giving people hope and healing through love and nourishment. The weight of the burden felt lighter, shared now. Jamie dared to envision a day filled with laughter, voices unified in support, reminiscent of her children's laughter so many years ago. It was a fresh beginning, a challenge they could face together. But as she locked eyes with Kyle, a new fear crept in. Would this newfound collaboration bring them closer, or would it unravel their bond further, making the path ahead even more uncertain? In that moment of decision, Jamie knew they needed to act fast before the shadows deepened. Could this be the moment that healed not just the community, but also her broken family? A step into the unknown lay ahead, beckoning a choice filled with mixed emotions, and the answer could change everything. The next day dawned bright and hopeful, yet Jamie felt the familiar weight of worry tumble around in her stomach. It was hard to shake the feeling that every step she took towards the benefit event was also a step closer to uncovering deeper issues. She and Kyle had flung themselves into planning without fully grasping the implications. As the sun streamed through the shop's windows, Jamie wiped down the counters with a renewed sense of purpose. The mingling scents of fresh fruit and herbal teas clung to the air, wrapping her in a comforting cocoon. But beneath it all, the unease simmered. She found herself glancing toward the door, half wondering whether someone would burst in with troubling news about Mr. Thompson. "All right, where do we start?" Kyle asked, enthusiasm lighting up his face like the sunlight pouring in. He was at the table, scribbling down ideas, his hands animated as he sketched smoothie combinations. "We need to spread the word, flyer the neighborhood," Jamie suggested, her voice trembling slightly. "Get everyone involved. This can't just be another event. It has to mean something. But it'll be more than just smoothies, right?" Kyle's eyes gleamed with excitement. "We can have local musicians, maybe a raffle. Everyone loves those. We could raise more money." "Good idea." Jamie felt the corners of her mouth curve into a tentative smile. Perhaps this could change things for them, for their community. The thought of smiling faces coming together, sharing stories, and supporting Mr. Thompson made her heart flutter with something close to hope. As they planned, the layers of their relationship began to peel back. For the first time in ages, Jamie felt like she wasn't alone in this fight. Kyle filled his list with suggestions and ideas, and with each new entry, Jamie's heart felt lighter. Later that afternoon, while they worked on flyers, the door creaked open. A familiar face stepped in, the lively Mrs. Patterson, always a source of warmth in the neighborhood. She froze, then smiled brightly. "What is all this buzz about? You two look like you've got some exciting plans." "Mrs. Patterson," Kyle exclaimed, "we're organizing a benefit for Mr. Thompson. We want the whole community to come together." "Now that is fantastic," she said, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "I'd love to help out. I can bake my famous brownies for the event." Before Jamie could respond, her phone buzzed loudly on the counter, cutting through the budding excitement. Glancing down, she saw it was a message from a number she didn't recognize. Her heart skipped a beat. What if it was news about Mr. Thompson? Hesitantly, she opened it. "Hi, Jamie. This is Dave Thompson. I'm reaching out regarding the event you're planning for my dad. If you could, please call me at your earliest convenience. We need to talk." The flutter of hope she'd just allowed herself surged into something more like panic. Jamie felt her heart sink, her optimism turning sour. "I need to take this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Kyle watched her, concern etching his features. "Mom, what's wrong?" "I don't know." A shiver ran down her spine as she stepped away, the weight of uncertainty settling back onto her shoulders like an unwanted shroud. As she dialed the number, her fingers trembled. Would this conversation shift everything once more? Would it bring clarity or further complications? "Please, let this be good news," she whispered to herself, just as the line connected. "Hello?" A deep voice answered, and Jamie felt her stomach twist. In that moment, she wished she were anywhere but here, about to unravel a conversation that could change the course of their intentions. "Mr. Thompson, it's Jamie from Harvest Blend," but what she didn't expect was the weight of truth that awaited her on the other end of the line. A truth that would challenge everything she thought she knew about her community, her family, and the sacrifices they would have to make. "Jamie, thank you for reaching out so quickly." Dave's voice was steady, but had an undercurrent of urgency that made Jamie's heart race. "I've heard about the benefit you're organizing for my dad. We really appreciate it, but there's something important we need to discuss." "Of course, anything you need," Jamie replied, forcing calm into her voice. She could feel Kyle's gaze burning into her back, filled with concern. She paced the small space, willing for the conversation to veer towards positivity. "My father, Mr. Thompson, has been keeping some things to himself," Dave continued, the weight of his words pressing on Jamie's chest like a heavy stone. "There are challenges he's been facing that we haven't really talked about, and I think it's important for you to be aware of them before the event." "What kind of challenges?" Jamie asked, bracing herself for the worst. She could hear a small rustling on the line, like Dave was gathering his thoughts. "He's been fighting some health issues, and he refuses to bring it up because he doesn't want anyone to worry. He's been too proud to ask for help. I'm trying to change that, but he's stubborn." A beat of silence hung heavily between them. Does he need immediate help?" Jamie's voice nearly cracked, the fresh air of hope she breathed in moments ago now replaced with dread. Dave sighed. "Yes and no. He's managing, but it's getting harder. The truth is, I don't want him to lose his spirits. I thought that maybe this benefit could not only raise funds, but also lift him emotionally. You know how he gets when he sees the community rallying around him." "Yes, that's exactly what we want to do," Jamie said softly, feeling the battle within her. How could they inspire the community to come together when Mr. Thompson wasn't in a position to acknowledge his need for support? She made a decision. "I can help him, Dave. I want to help him. We need to show him how much he's loved." "Thank you, Jamie. I think if we can keep everything positive, it might encourage him more. But, just be aware, his pride can be a wall." A lump formed in Jamie's throat as she thought about the man who had once stood strong for everyone. He deserved to see the love he'd sown in the community. But how could she convince him of that when he refused to admit his vulnerability? "I promise we'll make this an event he'll never forget," she said, determination threading her words. "But I'll need your help, too. Can you maybe keep him occupied while we set up?" "That sounds like a good plan," Dave answered, and Jamie could sense his relief. "I'll find a way to get him out of the house." "Thank you, truly." As she disconnected the call, Kyle stepped closer, a question in his eyes. "What did he say?" "He needs help, and we need to be more than just a fundraiser. We need to show Mr. Thompson he's not alone in this. She felt a fierce resolve rising inside her, but the fear of failure lingered still. Then we're all in. Together, Kyle said, affirming their shared commitment. Let us make it personal, something heartfelt. Without another word, they began crafting a plan. They brainstormed ideas for how to present Mr. Thompson with not just support, but a sense of belonging to something much larger than himself. A gathering that would wrap him in the love he had always given to others. Moments passed, but with each stroke of their pens, they felt more united in purpose than they ever had before. Yet, a shadow of doubt flickered in Jamie's mind. She remembered the man they were trying to uplift. His pride might stand taller than any community gathering that as the sun began to set outside, casting long shadows through the shop. Jamie felt both excited and terrified. Would Mr. Thompson be strong enough to let down his guard? Would he understand the intention behind their efforts? Mom, do you think he'll come? Kyle asked, breaking her thoughts. I hope so. He needs to know he matters, Jamie replied, swallowing against the weight of reality. But as they began organizing the details, Jamie couldn't shake the feeling that this plan could either mend what was broken or expose a fracture they weren't prepared to face. And with that lingering question stirring within her, she realized the next steps would be crucial. Tomorrow is going to be big, she breathed out, her heart racing once more, driven by both fear and hope. And as they continued working, a new worry surfaced. Was the community ready for this? As night fell, a new message popped up on her phone from Dave, sending a chill down her spine. I just found out something else. You need to know? Jamie stared at her phone, the glow illuminating her anxious expression. A second message followed quickly, her pulse quickening with each tap on the screen. Your dad. He didn't just hold back about his health. He has been struggling emotionally too, since it all began. Please take care with him. The room felt too small. Kyle's voice pulled her back to reality, muffled through the haze of her racing thoughts. What did he say? It's worse than I thought, she breathed, her hands shaking. Not just health, but his heart. He is feeling low. It's all piling up on him. Kyle's brow furrowed. He can't be the only one struggling, right? I mean, a lot of people in the community care about him. They would want to help. The glimmer of hope in Kyle's words offered a momentary comfort. They both knew how much Mr. Thompson meant to everyone. But the idea of unearthing deeper issues scared Jamie. What if he doesn't let us in? She muttered under her breath, biting her lip. What if this all blows up in our faces? Then we adapt. We find a way, Kyle insisted, his youthful determination shining through. Maybe we need to change our approach. Instead of just a fundraiser, what about a celebration of what he means to all of us? Remembering stories, sharing memories? Maybe he's not alone. Jamie considered this, her heart pounding as she pictured the event. Memories of laughing community gatherings filled her mind. The food, the music, the warmth of everyone gathered together. You're right. It could be a way to lift him up without putting him on the spot. Just a simple way to show him the love. Exactly. Kyle's enthusiasm was contagious. Let us start reaching out now. We can contact people for letters or even a video montage. Think of all the faces that would brighten his day. With renewed energy, Jamie pulled out her computer and began typing a list of names. Each one reminded her of someone who had been touched by Mr. Thompson's kindness. The bakery owner who always donated cookies for church events, the high school band, and even kids from the neighborhood who would cut his grass. Here, we'll hit up Mr. and Mrs. Evans. They thought he was the best teacher ever. She chimed. Let us get Emily from the library too. She would have stories. As they formulated a plan, Jamie felt the weight begin to lift, but she was still tethered to her worries. She worried if revealing the emotional struggle of someone like Mr. Thompson would expose cracks she wasn't ready to see. Do you think it's possible he won't want to hear anything we gather? Jamie asked, staring at Kyle. Maybe, he replied, his voice thoughtful. But shouldn't we try? What's the worst that could happen? He stay stubborn? Jamie knew he was right. They were committed to showing him the community cared, splashing him with love and respect. Still, in the back of her mind, the thought echoed, was Mr. Thompson genuinely able to accept that? After hours of planning, final touches remained to arrange the details for the gathering. With the clock ticking late into the night, a message lit up her phone again, drawing her attention away from the spreadsheets. It was Dave again. We're in uncharted waters here. One more thing. I've discovered something I think you should hear from my dad directly. Panic surged through Jamie. She gripped the desk, staring at it as if it were going to heal the whirlwind inside her. What else did she need to know? How much more could drop on her doorstep? Should I be worried? She whispered to herself, the air around her thick with uncertainty. Kyle leaned forward, sensing her distress. Jamie? She took a breath, took a leap, and hit reply, her heart racing as she typed. What do you mean? What I need to know. Little did she realize that the unfolding truth could change everything they'd planned. How could they possibly prepare for the storm that was about to hit? As she pressed send, Jamie steeled herself for whatever lay ahead. How deep did the roots run for Mr. Thompson's struggles? And would the truth, once unveiled, bring them closer or tear them apart? Jamie's heart raced as she stared at the screen, the message still hovering, waiting for a response. Her palms felt clammy, and a bead of sweat trickled down her back. What could Dave's dad have revealed? Her mind raced through countless scenarios, each darker than the last. Kyle watched her closely. Do you want me to read it? He offered, leaning over to offer support. No, I need to do this myself, Jamie replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She took a deep breath, then another. Stability was what she needed. I'll just give him a call. The idea of hearing Dave's voice grounded her. If it meant finding answers, she was all in. Relief mixed with fear coursed through her as she dialed. The ringing felt endless, each second punctuated by the throbbing in her chest. Finally, he answered. Jamie, is everything okay? She hesitated, overwhelmed by the immediate concern in Dave's tone. No, not quite. I got your message about your dad. Yeah, I didn't mean to worry you. He just mentioned something in passing that seems important. What was it? Silence stretched between them, heavy and taut. I think he is keeping something from you. Not just about his health, but how he feels about everything. It's like he is carrying a weight he doesn't want to share. Her heart dropped. Things were piling up like bricks, creating a wall she couldn't see over. What do you mean? Last week, I overheard him talking to my mom. He mentioned feeling isolated, overwhelmed by memories. It sounded like he doesn't think anyone understands. Tears pricked at Jamie's eyes. The truth felt like a punch to her gut, leaving her breathless. But why wouldn't he reach out? He has always been there for everyone. I don't know, Dave replied softly. Sometimes, people don't want to be a burden. That stung. Jamie understood that mindset all too well. She had seen Mr. Thompson put on a brave face, hiding his struggles behind soft smiles and supportive words. Thanks for telling me, Dave. We were planning a celebration for him, she said, urgency creeping into her tone. Do you think that could help? Maybe. He paused. She could almost see him thinking. But just make sure you're ready for what he might say. Gathering all those memories could also push him to confront something deeper. Her thoughts spun again, tangled in worry and hope. What if this celebration became a painful reminder for him instead? But the community needed to honor him. He wouldn't have to face it alone. Well, we'll figure it out, she asserted, nodding as if he could see her. I'll talk to Kyle. We'll find the right way to present the ideas. Let me know how it goes, he said before they hung up. Will do, she replied, though dread simmered at the edges of her resolve. As Jamie sat back at her desk, thoughts racing, Kyle tilted his head. What was that about? Dave said his dad feels isolated, and that we need to approach Mr. Thompson with care. He is holding back a lot. The celebration could be a risk. Kyle frowned, his youthful optimism faltering. But we need to show him the love, right? It'll remind him he is supported. Yeah, but if he is not ready? What if it opens old wounds? They both fell silent, the weight of uncertainty heavier than before. Maybe we need to think about how to include people sensitively, Kyle said, eyes thoughtful. Agreed. With a heavy sigh, Jamie's fingers hovered over her keyboard again. She needed to find the balance between honoring Mr. Thompson's spirit and safeguarding his heart. Would a celebration truly uplift him, or would it expose wounds he kept hidden? Before she could spiral into more questions, her phone buzzed again. Another message from Dave. Can we talk, Jamie? I think my dad might be ready to share, but it could change everything. Jamie's heart sank, the reality of what lay ahead dawning on her. What else could she learn? Would she be ready for his truth? Every step felt like venturing deeper into uncharted territory full of emotional landmines. How would they navigate the path that was now unavoidably laid before them? As Jamie stared at the message, Her heart felt heavier than before. She could almost hear the echo of Dave's voice, tinged with uncertainty. What had he meant by change everything? Kyle shifted in his seat, sensing her growing unease. You okay? His concern was palpable, breaking the silence like glass shattering. Not really, Jamie replied, biting her lip. If Dave's dad is ready to share, then what does that entail? She glanced out the window, where the sky was painted a heavy gray. A storm was brewing outside, mirroring the turmoil within her. Maybe it could be good, Kyle suggested, trying to inject some optimism into the moment. Sometimes talking about stuff helps, you know? It's like lifting a weight off your shoulders. I hope so, she said, though doubt lingered. But what if it's too much for him? And for us? Then we'll figure it out together. Kyle's voice was steady and reassuring, the kind of tone that made even the heaviest worries feel a bit lighter. Jamie contemplated this as she paced the room, her mind a storm of thoughts. Several minutes passed before she finally took a seat, her fingers dancing over the keys of her computer. The idea of connecting with the community and arranging that celebration was still fresh in her mind. She felt that it could be a lifeline, a bridge between Mr. Thompson's hidden struggles and the love that surrounded him. Oh, Kyle suddenly perked up. What about reaching out to some of the neighbors? They might have stories or memories about Mr. Thompson that we can include. It could help him feel appreciated. That was it. The spark she needed. That could work. Jamie exclaimed, her excitement cutting through the gloom. If we can gather those stories, it might remind him of how much he means to everyone. Maybe that's the connection he needs. Let us do it. Kyle pumped his fist, his energy contagious. They immediately started brainstorming names of neighbors who might want to help. Each name sparked different memories, revealing the many lives Mr. Thompson had touched. As they listed names, Jamie couldn't shake off the butterflies stirring within her. They made plans to start calling everyone the next day, feeling a sense of urgency mixed with hope. Gathering those stories felt like gathering pieces of Mr. Thompson's heart, as if each shared memory was a thread weaving them closer together. Still, as she fell into bed that night, her mind buzzed with uncertainty. What if the truths Dave's dad held were too painful? What if uncovering those memories shattered the joyful facade they hoped to present? She turned to her side, staring into the darkness. The next day came quicker than expected. Jamie was determined to forge ahead, telling herself that support and understanding were stronger than fear. She called the first neighbor on her list and was met with warm memories and laughter, which pushed back the lifelong worries that gripped her constantly as the day unfolded. They secured even more stories, each one reinforcing the plan. But just when she thought everything was falling into place, her phone buzzed again. A notification from Dave. I'm not sure if this is the right time. My dad has been in a weird space lately. Can we meet tonight? That familiar weight settled back in her chest. Would tonight be the night Dave would open up? Would she be ready to hear the truth about Mr. Thompson? The clock ticked on, and Jamie's thoughts raced. What awaited them was looming just ahead, both frightening and exhilarating. What would happen when they faced the truth together? Jamie paced back and forth, the message from Dave on her mind like a relentless drumbeat. Night had fallen, and the once warm glow of daylight had been replaced by the harsh flickering of her living room light. She glanced at her phone every few minutes, anxiety bubbling within her. She was sure tonight held potential for change, but how much change could they handle? Kyle sat across from her, tapping some old notes on his phone, trying to distract himself while also keeping an eye on Jamie. You know, sometimes the hardest conversations lead to the best outcomes, he said, his voice steady but soft. Tonight feels different, Jamie said, stopping to look him in the eyes. What if Dave's dad says something that we can't come back from? What if it's too much? The fear threatened to crack her resolve. Kyle set his phone down and leaned in closer. We're here for each other. We can take whatever he throws at us. Besides, Mr. Thompson is stronger than you think. People can surprise you with their resilience. Jamie sighed. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that everything would be okay. But the uncertainty tugged at her like a heavy anchor. She suddenly hauled herself to her feet, a mix of determination and trepidation surging through her. I have to be ready, for whatever happens. Then let us make sure we're prepared, he encouraged, rising alongside her. Maybe write down some questions or thoughts. It might help to have a plan. They started brainstorming together, jotting down ideas on a large piece of poster board. The room felt like it was filling with more than just words. It filled with the promise of hope, community, and a little fear. Jamie could feel her heartbeat steadying as she and Kyle immersed themselves in the possibilities, each note increasing a sense of unity as they worked through the questions. Jamie found herself remembering the smiles of neighbors they'd spoken to earlier that day, sharing stories of Mr. Thompson that wove warmth through her doubts. What if we ask Mr. Thompson about his happiest memories? Maybe that'll help him feel more at ease, she suggested. Great idea, Kyle replied, a smile breaking across his face. You know, bringing up happy times might make the tough conversations easier. Just as they wrapped up their preparations, Jamie's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Dave, simply saying, "I'm on my way." Her stomach twisted. "This is it," she whispered, looking over at Kyle, who nodded, mirroring her anxious energy. They sat together in the tense silence, the anticipation thick in the air. Moments later, there was a knock on the door, and Jamie's heart raced. She glanced at Kyle, who gave her a reassuring smile that barely masked his own nervousness. When she opened the door, Dave stood there, unease etched across his features. "Hey," he said, his voice wavering slightly. Jamie noticed the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands fidgeted nervously at his sides. "Hey, come in," she replied gently, stepping aside. "We've been waiting for you." As he stepped inside, the air seemed to change. An electric charge filled the room, a moment suspended as they all took a breath. The conversation would dive deep, peeling back layers that had long been hidden. But Jamie knew they needed to face whatever truths lay behind Mr. Thompson's silence. As they settled into the living room, Jamie's heart pounding loud enough that she hoped the others couldn't hear it. "Are you ready?" she silently asked herself. The moment of truth was just beginning, suspended on the edge like a tightrope awaiting the weight of their fears. Would they be able to hold on to each other through this unraveling, or would it tip them into a rift they couldn't cross back? "Let us talk," Dave finally said, his voice small but firm, and with those words, Jamie knew they were about to uncover something huge. What truths would unfold? And would they be strong enough to handle them? Dave stepped further into the room, his eyes darting from Jamie to Kyle, the weight of the moment settling heavily on their shoulders. Jamie took a deep breath, grounding herself. Thanks for coming," she blurted, struggling to find the right words. Each syllable felt like it was pulling the seams of her thoughts apart. "Yeah, I wanted to," Dave said, his voice barely above a whisper. He shoved his hands deep into his pockets, trying to anchor himself. The tension stretched between them, a physical barrier that seemed almost impossible to breach. "So, Jamie began, her voice shaking ever so slightly. "We thought it might help if we talked about your dad, about some memories, or, whatever you feel comfortable sharing." The words hung in the air, each one seeming to pulse with their own emotion. Dave nodded, biting his lip. "Yeah, sure," he replied, his gaze dropping to the floor. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating almost. Jamie caught Kyle's eye as they exchanged a knowing look, silently agreeing to stay strong. Just then, Dave lifted his head, determination flickering in his eyes. I think my dad really misses the good old days. Before everything got so messed up." His voice faltered here, but there was a fire in his words that made Jamie's heart swell. "Maybe talking about those times could help." "Absolutely," Kyle said, leaning forward in his chair, ready to catch anything Dave was willing to throw out. "What's one of your favorite memories with him?" There was warmth in his voice, the kind that felt like a lifeline pulling them closer together. Dave took a deep breath. "There was this summer. I was 10. My dad took me fishing at the old lake. The one by the barn." His face softened with the memory. "We'd wake up at dawn, and he'd let me pick out our snacks. I remember I chose way too many gummy bears." A smile broke through the concern on Jamie's face. She could picture it, the sun draping over the water, laughter echoing. "That sounds amazing. Did you catch anything?" Dave chuckled, a genuine laugh that lifted the weight in the room. "Not a single fish. But we spent hours trying. I think we ended up playing this dumb game with rocks instead." As he spoke, the tension began to dissipate, replaced by the glow of nostalgia. The three of them leaned in, entranced by Dave's storytelling as he painted frames of laughter and joy, moments suspended like photographs in their minds. But then, the memories turned darker. "Things changed after my mom left. That was when he just stopped being that guy you'd want to fish with, Dave admitted quietly, the light in his eyes dimming. It's like he got lost. And I didn't really know how to help him. The confession hung like a weighted blanket, pressing down on them all. Jamie felt a rush of sympathy, recognizing the familiar struggle to reach someone who was unreachable. You're not alone in this, she said softly, laying a hand on his arm. We're here to help however we can. Dave nodded but seemed lost in thoughts, memories swirling painfully in his mind. I wish I could just go back to those days. They all sat in silence for a moment, absorbing the weight of his longing. Jamie knew this was just the beginning of a deeper conversation, one that might open wounds, yet allow for the possibility of healing. Kyle took a deep breath, breaking the stillness. We don't need to fix everything tonight. Just share what feels right, one step at a time. Yeah, one step at a time, Jamie echoed, her voice steadying. And with that, the air shimmered with fragile hope, a flicker of light amidst the darkness. But in that moment of connection, Jamie felt her phone vibrate again, pulling her back into uncertainty. Among the buzzing and chaos, one question lingered in the depths of her mind. What if revealing the truth didn't set them free, but instead trapped them in a pain they couldn't escape? As she glanced at the screen, her stomach tightened. She had to know what was waiting behind the door of their next conversation. Who else knows? She asked suddenly, her heart dropping. The weight of that sentence hung, demanding answers as they each held their breath, knowing the easy path had just left the building. As the words left Jamie's lips, the air thickened. Tension hung over them like an unseen fog, weaving through her thoughts, each heartbeat pounding with uncertainty. What do you mean? Dave responded slowly, the uncertainty in his eyes mirroring the fear gripping Jamie. I mean, who else knows about everything you just told us? About how your dad has been feeling? Has he talked to anyone besides you? Jamie pressed gently, her heart racing. It was critical to understand the extent of Mr. Thompson's struggles, the weight of the secrets surrounding him. Just me. I didn't know how to bring it up to anyone else. He always seemed so proud. I didn't want to make it worse, Dave admitted, shame creeping into his posture. Jamie's heart ached. She had felt that weight, too. It reminded her of her own experiences, feeling the burden of pride stopping her from reaching out for help. How do you think we can get him to talk? Or to let us in? Kyle asked, searching Dave's gaze for insight. Dave paused, deep in thought. I've tried to get him to open up, but he just brushes it off, says he's fine. Maybe he'd be more likely to express himself if he could share his memories in front of everyone. You know? Draw strength from the community. Exactly, Jamie exclaimed, a glimmer of hope igniting in her chest. We can create an environment where he feels that love and support. We can frame this celebration around remembering the man he was back then, surrounded by family, friends, everyone who cares. Dave nodded, a spark of determination igniting in his eyes. Maybe if he sees people rallying, sharing their experiences with him, it'll encourage him to let the walls down. We just need to remind him he's not alone, Kyle added, the younger man's belief shining bright in his words. Jamie felt her resolve solidify. They had momentum now. We can weave those stories together for the event. It'll show him that he's loved, that he matters. It gives him a chance to connect, to understand that he's still valuable to everyone even if life's storm has changed him. It doesn't mean he's lost. Dave's eyes softened as he considered their words. That might just be the key. The following week turned into a whirl of energy as the three of them collaborated, each interaction breathing new life into their plans. The idea of gathering stories grew wings, floating from neighbor to neighbor, hearts opening as they recalled their fondest moments with Mr. Thompson. They spent hours organizing, calling, and gathering every precious memory they could find. Jamie's heart raced with excitement as she envisioned the day of the event. A bittersweet feeling nudged at her, the blend of anxiety and hope that pulsed through the air. Finally, the day of the celebration arrived. The bright sun lit up the sky as Jamie and Kyle finished setting up outside Harvest Blend. Banners swayed gently in the breeze, adorned with kind words and photos of Mr. Thompson mixed with memories written by those he'd touched throughout the years. As the familiar faces began to gather, Jamie's heart swelled at the sight her community standing in solidarity. Kind, loving people who respected Mr. Thompson and wanted to show him the strength of their support. It made her realize just how significant a network of love could truly be. A hush swept over the crowd as Dave stepped forward. The moment was here. With shaky breaths, he began to share. "Thank you all for being here. My dad deserves this more than anyone. He has been a constant light in our lives, and I know he needs to feel that light again." From the back of the crowd, a voice rose, Mrs. Patterson, holding a plate of brownies. "We love you, Mr. Thompson." The ripple of support surged through the gathering. People chimed in, sharing sweet anecdotes. "Remember when he taught us all how to ride our bikes? His jokes were the best." The smiles were contagious. Laughter mingled with tears flowing freely as each story added layers to Mr. Thompson's tapestry of life. Each thread vibrant with remembrance. As Jamie watched, her heart settled into a calm rhythm. There was something magical happening. The love in the crowd turned from whispers of concern to a brave show of support, and she couldn't help but think of how this transformed not just Mr. Thompson, but her own relationship with Kyle as well. Finally, Mr. Thompson arrived, a wave of silence enveloping the area as he stepped into the warm embrace of the community. The surprised look on his face told Jamie everything. The weight of isolation and sorrow began to melt away as love poured forth. As he listened, the tough exterior slowly began to break. Jamie felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude swell in her heart. Every shared memory resonated with power, revealing a path forward for healing in ways they could never had anticipated. Watching Mr. Thompson break down, overwhelmed by the outpouring of love, reminded Jamie of her own struggles in reaching out to Kyle. There was vulnerability, but also strength in community. "Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring." Mr. Thompson finally spoke, his voice thick with emotion. "I never realized how shallow I'd let my life become. I want to be present again, to be involved." Those words lifted Jamie further, like they were severed links being mended. Love brought them back together, in the flurry of hugs and laughter that folded them all into a united front. Jamie turned to Kyle, who smiled wide, eyes bright with unshed tears of joy at seeing Mr. Thompson thriving. "We did this, Mom," he exclaimed, embracing her tightly. They had, and the moment filled her with profound hope. Maybe this was the shift they both needed. As the event wound down, Jamie and Kyle stood together, gratitude mingling with the promises of new beginnings. They were no longer bound by their past harnesses. They had forged a renewed connection not just with each other, but with their community, revitalized in faith, empathy, and love. And most importantly, Jamie found clarity for herself. This wasn't just about smoothies or even health. It was about being present, being authentic, extending hands when life felt heavy. As the love poured into them, their fears started to recede, allowing the beauty of connection to light the way forward. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over Harvest Blend, Jamie looked to Kyle and felt something new bloom inside. Perhaps life would always bring storms, but as long as they had each other and their community, they could weather anything together. You need to subscribe now for more transformative stories that inspire and echo our shared humanity. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about this heartfelt ending. What moments stood out to you? Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. Don't wait, not even one more second.